Jake Morrison squinted through the rain that hammered his windshield. The storm had been following him for the past 50 miles along the empty Nevada highway. His massive cargo hauler cut through the darkness like a metal beast, its headlights barely cutting through the sheets of water falling from the black sky. The year 2387 had brought many changes to Earth, but some things stayed the same. Bad weather still made driving dangerous, and lonely highways still stretched across empty land. Jake preferred it this way. After 10 years of hauling cargo between planets, he had learned to enjoy the quiet moments between the chaos of spaceports and loading docks. His radio crackled with static. Jake reached over and turned it off. He did not need weather reports telling him what he already knew. The storm was getting worse, and he still had 200 miles to go before reaching his destination. That was when he saw her. A figure stood on the side of the road, thumb extended in the universal sign for help. Jake could barely make out the shape through the rain, but it was clearly a young woman. She wore dark clothes that were already soaked through, and she seemed to be shivering. Jake slowed his truck. Company policy was clear about picking up hitchhikers. Do not do it. Too many drivers had been robbed or worse. But something about the scene made him pause. The woman looked desperate, and there were no other vehicles on this stretch of road. If he left her here, she might die from exposure. He pulled over and rolled down his window. Rain immediately started coming into the cab. "You need help?" he called out. The young woman ran toward his truck. Up close, Jake could see she was probably in her early 20s. She had brown hair that stuck to her face from the rain, and her clothes looked expensive despite being muddy and torn. "Please," she said, her voice shaking from cold or fear. "I need to get away from here. Can you give me a ride?" Jake hesitated. Everything about this situation screamed trouble, but the woman looked genuinely scared, and leaving her in the storm felt wrong. "Where are you going?" he asked. "Anywhere but here," she replied. "I can pay you." Jake made his decision. "Get in. But I am not going out of my way. You ride with me to Denver, and then you are on your own." She climbed into the passenger seat, dripping water everywhere. "Thank you," she said. "My name is Lily." "Jake," he replied, putting the truck back in gear. "There are towels in the back compartment. Dry yourself off before you catch pneumonia." As Lily reached for the towels, Jake noticed her hands. They were soft, not the hands of someone who did manual work. Her fingernails were perfectly shaped, and she wore a small ring that looked real expensive. This was not some random girl who got stranded by the storm. "So what were you doing out there?" Jake asked as they got back on the highway. Lily wrapped a towel around her shoulders. "Family problems," she said quietly. "I needed to get away." Jake had heard that story before. Rich kid runs away from home, thinks the world is against them, then goes crawling back when reality hits. But something in Lily's voice suggested this was more serious than typical teenage rebellion. "Family problems bad enough to risk dying in a storm?" he asked. Lily looked out the window at the rain. "You would not understand. Try me. I have got 8 hours of driving ahead of me, and the radio is broken." For a few minutes, they drove in silence. Jake watched the road while stealing glances at his passenger. She kept checking the mirrors as if expecting to see someone following them. Her whole body was tense like a spring ready to snap. "My father," she finally said. "He is not a good man. I found out things about his business. Things that made me sick. When I tried to talk to him about it, he said I was too young to understand. But I understand perfectly. He is hurting people." Jake nodded. He had seen plenty of corporate corruption during his years in the military, rich men making profits while others paid the price. "So you ran away?" "I took something from him. Evidence. He will be very angry when he finds out." This was getting more complicated than Jake wanted. "What kind of evidence?" Lily hesitated. "The kind that could ruin him, and maybe save a lot of lives." Jake's grip tightened on the steering wheel. He was starting to regret picking her up. Corporate espionage was serious business, especially when it involved the big interstellar companies. People disappeared for knowing less than what this girl was talking about. "Look, Lily, I don't want any trouble. I just haul cargo and mind. My own business, I know, and I am sorry for dragging you into this. But I had no choice. There was no one else I could trust. You don't even know me. I know you stopped to help a stranger in a storm. That tells me something about who you are." Jake glanced at his navigation system and frowned. The display was flickering, showing strange symbols instead of the usual route information. He tapped the screen, but it kept glitching. "Is your nav system broken?" Lily asked, noticing his confusion. "It was working fine an hour ago." Jake tried, rebooting the system, but the strange symbols remained. Must be interference from the storm. But as he looked closer, Jake realized the symbols were not random. They looked almost like a language, but not any human language he recognized. The pattern seemed to shift and change when he was not looking directly at them. Lily leaned over to look at the screen. The moment she got close, the symbols became more pronounced, almost glowing. Jake stared at her. "That is weird," she said, but her voice sounded forced, like she was trying too hard to seem surprised. "Yeah, weird," Jake agreed, but his mind was racing. Electronic systems did not just start displaying alien symbols for no reason, and they certainly did not react to passengers unless those passengers were carrying something that interfaced with the technology. He was about to ask Lily more questions when bright lights appeared in his rearview mirror. 3 vehicles were approaching fast, their headlights cutting through the rain like searchlights. Jake checked his speedometer. He was doing the speed limit, so it was not the police. "We have company," he told Lily. She spun around to look back, and her face went white. "They found me." The vehicles were gaining quickly, moving much faster than normal cars could manage on the wet road. As they got closer, Jake could see they were not standard vehicles at all. They hovered above the pavement, their sleek shapes cutting through the air with impossible grace. "What the hell are those?" Jake muttered. "Not human," Lily whispered. Before Jake could process what she meant, the hover vehicles surrounded his truck, forcing him toward an exit ramp that led to an abandoned rest stop. Jake had no choice but to follow their direction. His cargo hauler was powerful, but it could not outrun craft that defied gravity. The rest stop had been closed for years. Broken windows and graffiti covered the old buildings, and weeds grew through cracks in the pavement. Jake parked his truck and killed the engine. The 3 hover vehicles landed around them, their occupants still hidden behind tinted windows. "I am sorry," Lily said, her voice barely audible. "I never meant for you to get involved in this." Jake looked at her, then at the vehicles surrounding them. Whatever trouble this girl was in, it was bigger than corporate espionage. Much bigger. Too late now, he said, reaching for the emergency kit under his seat. "Looks like we are both involved." The doors of the hover vehicles opened with a soft hiss. Jake gripped his emergency kit tighter as tall figures stepped out into the rain. At first glance, they looked human, but something was wrong with their proportions. They were too tall, too thin, and they moved with an odd, flowing grace that made Jake's skin crawl. The leader approached Jake's truck. When it got close enough, Jake could see its face through the windshield. The features were almost human, but the eyes were too large and completely black. The skin had a slight green tint that became more obvious under the truck's lights. The creature tapped on Jake's window with fingers that had too many joints. Jake rolled the window down a few inches, keeping his hand near the emergency controls for his truck's defensive systems. "Driver Morrison," the creature said in perfect English, though its voice had an odd buzzing quality. "You will exit the vehicle and surrender the Carter heir to us." Jake's blood went cold. They knew his name, and they knew about Lily. He glanced at her, and she was staring at the creature with a mixture of fear and anger. "I don't know what you're talking about," Jake said. The creature's black eyes focused on him with disturbing intensity. "Do not waste our time with lies. We are Commander Alex Stone of the Hegemony Enforcement Division. The human female in your vehicle is Lily Carter, daughter of Henry Carter, Chief Executive of Carter Dynamics Corporation." Jake turned to look at Lily, who was no longer trying to hide her identity. Her whole posture had changed. The scared girl was gone, replaced by someone who looked like she was used to making important decisions. "Lily Carter," Jake repeated. As in Carter Dynamics, the biggest mining company in known space? She nodded. My father owns mining operations on 47 worlds across 3 star systems. And you're worth what? 1 billion credits? More, she said quietly. Commander Stone tapped the window again. The heir will come with us voluntarily or we will take her by force. You have 60 seconds to decide. Jake looked at the alien commander, then at Lily. What did you take from your father? Lily reached into her jacket and pulled out a small data device, records of every world Carter Dynamics has mined in the past 10 years, including the ones where we killed entire ecosystems. Mining kills ecosystems, Jake said. That's not exactly news. Not like this, Lily replied. We're not just strip mining. We're using banned nanotechnology that breaks down organic matter at the molecular level. It doesn't just kill plants and animals, it makes it impossible for anything to ever grow again. Ever. Jake felt sick. How many worlds? 17 so far. Each one had intelligent life. Some had civilizations older than human history. Commander. Stone's voice came through the window again. 30 seconds. Jake's military training kicked in. He had served in enough conflicts to recognize a bad situation when he saw one. These aliens wanted Lily, but they had not simply taken her. They were following some kind of protocol, which meant they had rules they had to follow. What happens if she goes with you? Jake asked the commander. She will testify before the hegemony, counsel about her father's crimes against sentient worlds. And then? Justice will be served. Lily grabbed Jake's arm. Their justice means executing every human involved in the mining operations. That includes thousands of workers who had no idea what they were really doing. Jake understood. The aliens did not want justice. They wanted revenge, and they were going to use Lily to justify it. Time is up, Commander Stone announced. Jake made his decision. He hit the emergency controls and his truck's defensive systems activated. Thick smoke poured from vents around the vehicle, creating a cloud that hid them from view. At the same time, Jake fired up his engine and activated the cargo hauler's emergency acceleration system. The truck shot forward like a rocket, its massive wheels throwing gravel and mud in all directions. Jake steered toward the old rest stop buildings, using them as cover while he put distance between his truck and the hover vehicles. Hold on, he shouted to Lily as they crashed through a chain-link fence and bounced across uneven ground. Behind them, the aliens were shouting in their buzzing language. Jake could see their vehicles taking off, following his truck's trail of destruction through the desert. Where are we going? Lily asked, gripping her seat as they hit another bump. To see an old friend, Jake replied. Pete Williams runs a repair shop about 20 miles from here. If anyone can help us disappear, it's him. Jake pushed his truck to its limits, weaving between rock formations and dry creek beds. His cargo hauler was not built for off-road racing, but it was tough enough to handle the rough terrain. The hover vehicles were faster, but they seemed to have trouble following his erratic path through the desert. After 15 minutes of hard driving, Jake spotted the entrance to Pete's place. It looked like nothing more than a crack in a cliff face, but Jake knew better. He drove straight toward the rock wall and was relieved when a hidden door slid open just in time. They plunged into darkness, following a tunnel that had been carved out of solid rock. Emergency lights flickered on as they passed, illuminating a passage that was just wide enough for Jake's truck. The tunnel opened into a vast underground cavern filled with vehicles, equipment, and living quarters. Pete Williams had built himself a fortress hidden beneath the Nevada desert, complete with workshops, storage areas, and enough supplies to last for months. Pete himself was waiting for them at the bottom of the tunnel. He was a short, stocky man with grease-stained coveralls and cybernetic implants where his left arm used to be. Jake had saved Pete's life during the Centauri border wars, and Pete had never forgotten the debt. Jake Morrison, Pete said with a grin. I was wondering when you'd show up here with trouble following you. Jake climbed out of his truck, helping Lily down from the passenger seat. Pete, meet Lily Carter. Lily, this is Pete Williams, the best mechanic in human space. Pete's expression changed when he heard the name Carter. As in Carter Dynamics Carter? The same, Lily replied. Pete whistled low. Son, you have really stepped in at this time. Half the bounty hunters in the galaxy are looking for her. How do you know that? Jake asked. Pete pointed to a bank of communication equipment along one wall. I monitor all the major networks. The word went out 3 hours ago. Henry Carter is offering 50 million credits for his daughter's safe return. Says she's mentally unstable and dangerous, Lily laughed bitterly. Dangerous to his business, maybe. The aliens who were chasing us, Jake said. They called themselves the Hegemony Enforcement Division. Pete's face went pale. The Hegemony? Jake, what have you gotten yourself into? I just gave a girl a ride, Jake protested. A girl carrying evidence that could start an interstellar war, Lily corrected. My father's crimes aren't just against the environment. He's been working with corrupt members of the Hegemony to cover up what he's doing. If this information gets out, it will expose conspiracy at the highest levels of galactic government. Pete sat down heavily on a nearby workbench. This is bigger than corporate corruption. This is treason against the entire human race. Jake felt the weight of the situation settling on his shoulders. All he had wanted was to help someone in trouble. Now he was caught in the middle of a conspiracy that reached across star systems. What are our options? He asked Pete. Run and hide or fight back, Pete replied. And if we're going to fight, we're going to need help. Lily pulled out her data device again. I know someone who might be willing to help. Dr. Kate Sullivan works for the Galactic Environmental Council. If anyone can get this information to the right people, it's her. Pete nodded toward his communication array. Make the call, but be careful. Your father's people will be monitoring all the standard channels. As Lily moved toward the communications equipment, Jake noticed movement on Pete's security monitors. Dark shapes were moving outside the hidden entrance to the facility. Pete, Jake said quietly. We've got company. Pete looked at the monitors and cursed. Those aren't alien ships. Those are human corporate security vessels. Your girl's father works fast. How did they find us so quickly? Lily asked. Jake had a terrible thought. He pulled out his personal communicator and checked its status. A small red light was blinking that he had never seen before. They've been tracking my comm unit, he realized. Probably since we left the rest stop. Pete was already moving toward a weapons locker. Then they know exactly where we are and how. Many people are down here. The security monitor showed armed figures rappelling down from the corporate ships. They wore full combat armor and carried military-grade weapons. How many ways out of this place? Jake asked. 3, Pete replied, handing Jake an energy rifle. But they'll have all of them covered by now. Lily finished connecting to the communication array. I'm sending the data to Dr. Sullivan now. Even if they capture us, the evidence will survive. Jake checked his rifle and moved toward the main entrance. Then let's make sure we survive too. The sound of cutting tools echoed through the cavern as the corporate soldiers began trying to breach Pete's security door. Jake estimated they had maybe 5 minutes before the door failed. Pete, is there anything in this place that goes boom? Jake asked. Pete grinned. Jake, my friend, you're in an underground weapons cache. Everything in here goes boom. The cutting tools stopped their work on Pete's security door. In the sudden silence, Jake could hear his own heartbeat and the hum of the facility's power systems. Pete was loading explosive charges into a launcher while Lily worked frantically at the communication station. Got through to Dr. Sullivan, Lily announced. She's receiving the data now. Jake kept his rifle trained on the main entrance. What did she say? That it's worse than I thought. Carter Dynamics isn't just killing worlds. They're using nanotechnology that prevents planets from ever supporting life again. It's not mining. It's permanent sterilization. Pete looked up from his weapons. How is that profitable? Dead worlds can't produce anything. That's the point, Lily replied. My father isn't just mining these worlds. He's making sure no one else can ever use them. It's about controlling resources across the entire galaxy. The security door began to glow red as the corporate soldiers resumed cutting. Jake estimated they had 3 minutes before the door failed completely. Pete, we need to go, Jake said. Working on it, Pete replied. He was attaching something to Jake's truck that looked like military-grade armor plating. Your hauler is tough, but it won't survive a firefight without upgrades. Dr. Kate Sullivan's voice crackled through the communication system. Lily, I've analyzed the data you sent. This goes beyond environmental crimes. Your father has been, working with a faction inside the hegemony to eliminate human competition for resources. What do you mean? Jake asked. The hegemony has been secretly supporting Carter Dynamics' destruction of habitable worlds. They want to keep humanity contained in their current territory. When humans become desperate for new worlds, the hegemony plans to offer protection in exchange for complete control. Jake felt sick. They're planning to enslave the human race. Not enslave, Dr. Sullivan corrected. Eliminate. The data shows communications between Henry Carter and high-ranking hegemony officials. They're planning to declare humanity a dangerous species that must be contained permanently. The security door was almost breached. Pete finished his work on Jake's truck and moved to a control panel near the back of the cavern. There's a second tunnel that leads to an old mine shaft, Pete explained. I can collapse the main entrance to buy you time, but you'll have to drive through 5 miles of underground passages to reach the surface. What about you? Jake asked. Someone needs to stay behind and make sure they don't follow you, Pete replied. Besides, I've got enough explosives down here to take out half the mountain. Jake started to protest, but Pete cut him off. This is my choice, Jake. You saved my life once. Now I'm returning the favor. The security door finally gave way. Armed figures in corporate uniforms poured into the cavern, their weapons ready. Pete hit a button on his control panel, and emergency lights began flashing throughout the facility. Go! Pete shouted. Jake grabbed Lily and pushed her toward his truck. Behind them, Pete opened fire on the corporate soldiers with a heavy energy cannon that lit up the entire cavern. The soldiers scattered for cover, giving Jake the time he needed. Jake's truck roared to life, its engine now enhanced with Pete's military upgrades. Jake drove toward the back tunnel as energy bolts flew. Overhead, the tunnel entrance was narrow, barely wide enough for his truck, but Jake squeezed through just as Pete triggered the first set of explosive charges. The blast shook the entire mountain. Jake's truck bounced and skidded as rocks fell from the tunnel ceiling. Behind them, the cavern entrance collapsed in a shower of stone and debris. Pete! Lily shouted, but Jake kept driving. Pete had made his choice, and stopping now would make his sacrifice meaningless. The tunnel was dark and winding, carved out of solid rock decades ago by miners looking for precious metals. Jake's headlights illuminated rough walls and support beams that looked ready to collapse. The truck's enhanced engine gave them the power they needed to climb steep sections and navigate tight turns. After 20 minutes of careful driving, they emerged from the mine shaft onto a remote mountain road. Jake stopped the truck and looked back at the mountain. Smoke was rising from several points on the rocky slopes, and he could see the glow of fires burning deep underground. He made it out, Lily said quietly. Pete is too smart to get caught in his own trap. Jake wanted to believe her, but he had seen the determination in Pete's eyes. His old friend had been prepared to die to protect them. Dr. Sullivan's voice came through the truck's communication system. Jake, Lily, are you safe? For now, Jake replied, but we can't stay here long. They'll have tracked us this far. I've got some good news and some bad news, Dr. Sullivan said. The good news is that I've presented your evidence to the Galactic Environmental Council. They're calling for an immediate investigation of Carter Dynamics. And the bad news? Lily asked. Your father has convinced Earth authorities that you're mentally unstable and dangerous. He's got official support for your capture and return. But that's not the worst part. Jake gripped the steering wheel tighter. What's the worst part? The hegemony is using this situation as justification for increased security measures in human space. They're claiming that human corporations are out of control and need direct alien supervision. Lily pounded her fist on the dashboard. This is exactly what my father wanted. Whether I testify or not, Earth loses its independence. Jake thought about the problem. Henry Carter had created a situation where every option led to the same result. If Lily testified, the hegemony would use the evidence to justify taking over human space. If she stayed silent, Carter Dynamics would continue destroying worlds until humanity was completely dependent on alien resources. There has to be a third option, Jake said. What are you thinking? Dr. Sullivan asked. We stop running and start fighting back. But not the way they expect. Jake pulled up a star chart on his truck's navigation system. Carter Dynamics' main headquarters was on New Pittsburgh, a mining world in the Kepler system. It was heavily defended and surrounded by corporate security, but it was also where Henry Carter would be conducting business as usual. You want to attack Carter Dynamics directly? Lily asked. Not attack, Jake corrected. Expose. Your father thinks he's got this all figured out, but he's made one mistake. He assumes that ordinary people won't fight back when they learn the truth. Dr. Sullivan's voice crackled with static as interference began affecting their communication. Jake, I'm reading multiple ships approaching your position. You need to move now. Jake started his truck and pulled back onto the mountain road. The distance, he could see lights in the sky moving toward them. The corporate hunters had found their trail. Dr. Sullivan, can you get a message to Captain Roy Mitchell of the Earth Defense Force? Jake asked. I know Roy. What do you want me to tell him? Tell him that Jake Morrison has evidence of treason at the highest levels of human government. Tell him I need to meet with him as soon as possible. Roy Mitchell was your commanding officer during the Centauri Wars, Lily said. Can you trust him? Roy is one of the few people in the military who can't be bought, Jake replied. If anyone can help us get to the truth, it's him. The lights in the sky were getting closer. Jake could make out the shapes of corporate security ships, moving in a search pattern across the mountain range. Soon they would spot his truck on the exposed road. There, Lily pointed to a dirt track that led down the mountainside. That road leads to an old mining town called Silver Creek. It's been abandoned for 50 years. Jake turned onto the dirt road just as searchlights swept across the area where they had been driving. The corporate ships continued their patrol, not noticing the dust cloud from Jake's truck disappearing into the valley below. Silver Creek had once been a thriving mining community, but now it was just empty buildings and rusted equipment. Jake drove his truck into an old warehouse and shut off the engine. For the first time in hours, they were safe from immediate pursuit. What now? Lily asked. Jake checked his communication equipment. Now we contact Captain Mitchell and hope he's still the man I remember, because if he's not, we're about to walk into a trap that will end everything. Dr. Sullivan's voice came through clearly for the first time since they had left Pete's facility. Jake, I've got Roy on the line. He wants to talk to you. Jake took a deep breath. The next few minutes would determine whether they had any hope of stopping Henry Carter's conspiracy or whether humanity would lose its freedom forever. Put him through, Jake said. Captain Roy Mitchell's familiar voice filled the truck. Jake Morrison, you always did know how to find trouble. What have you gotten yourself into this time? Something bigger than both of us, Roy. Something that could destroy everything we fought for. There was a long pause. I'm listening. Captain Roy Mitchell's voice carried the same authority Jake remembered from their military days. Jake, I've been investigating some strange activities in the mining sector. Your timing is perfect, but not in a good way. Jake looked at Lily, who was listening to every word. What do you mean, Roy? 3 hours ago, I received orders to arrest you and Lily Carter on site. The orders came directly from Earth Command, signed by people I've never heard of. That's when I knew something was wrong. Lily leaned closer to the communication system. Captain Mitchell, this is Lily Carter. I have evidence that my father has been committing crimes against entire civilizations. I believe you, Roy replied, because I've been tracking similar activities for months. Ships disappearing, mining operations in restricted space, and communications that get classified before I can read them. Dr. Sullivan's voice joined the conversation. Roy, the evidence Lily gathered shows a conspiracy between Carter Dynamics and corrupt hegemony officials. They're not just destroying worlds. They're preparing to eliminate human independence completely. There was a long silence before Roy spoke again. I was afraid of that. Jake, I need to show you something. Can you get to the coordinates I'm sending to your navigation system? Jake's truck computer received the coordinates and displayed them on the screen. The location was in deep space, About 6 hours away by fast ship. What's at those coordinates? Jake asked. Evidence that will make Lily's data look like the tip of an iceberg, Roy replied. But we need to move fast. I'm tracking at least 12 different hunter groups looking for you two. Jake checked his truck's fuel and supply levels. Pete's upgrades had included additional fuel tanks and emergency supplies, but they would need a ship to reach Roy's coordinates. Roy, we're going to need transportation, Jake said. Already handled. There's a small spaceport in Silver Creek, hidden in the old mine complex. I've arranged for a ship to meet you there. Lily looked surprised. Silver Creek has a spaceport? Illegal mining operations need discreet transportation, Roy explained. The port has been there for 20 years, hidden from official records. Jake started his truck and drove deeper into the abandoned town. Following Roy's directions, they reached what looked like another empty warehouse. But when Jake entered, the security code Roy provided, hidden doors opened to reveal a modern spaceport facility. A sleek courier ship waited on the landing pad. The pilot was a young woman with short black hair and the confident stance of someone who had seen combat. Captain Mitchell sent me, she said as Jake and Lily approached. I'm Lisa Barnes. I'll be your pilot for this trip. Lily stopped walking. Lisa? Lisa Barnes from school? The pilot turned around and smiled. Hello, Lily. It's been a long time. You two know each other? Jake asked. Lisa was my roommate at the academy, Lily explained, before my father pulled me out and made me study business instead. Lisa's expression hardened. Before your father decided that women shouldn't serve in the military, he made some very large donations to ensure you were transferred to a civilian program. I never knew that, Lily said quietly. There's a lot you don't know about your father's influence, Lisa replied. But we can discuss that during the flight. Right now, we need to leave before the hunters find this place. Jake transferred his essential equipment from his truck to the courier ship. The vessel was small but fast, designed for moving people and cargo quickly through contested space. During the 6-hour flight to Roy's coordinates, Lily and Lisa talked about their time at the academy and what had happened since. Jake learned that Lisa had become a military intelligence officer, specializing in corporate espionage and corruption cases. I've been investigating Carter Dynamics for 2 years, Lisa explained. Your father's company has connections to organized crime, illegal weapons dealers, and corrupt government officials across human space. How deep does it go? Lily asked. Deeper than we thought possible. Carter Dynamics doesn't just mine worlds. They destabilize entire regions to create markets for their security services. They've been involved in at least 6 civil wars and dozens of corporate takeovers. Jake felt sick as he listened to the conversation. Henry Carter wasn't just destroying alien worlds. He was destroying human communities too. Captain Mitchell said he had evidence that would make Lily's data look small. Jake said, What kind of evidence? Lisa checked her navigation instruments. We're about to find out. We're approaching the coordinates now. Through the ship's viewports, Jake could see what looked like an asteroid field. But as they got closer, he realized the rocks were not natural. They were the remains of ships, space stations, and artificial structures. What is this place? Lily whispered. Lisa's voice was grim. This used to be the Harmony Station, a diplomatic outpost where humans and aliens worked together on environmental protection projects. It was destroyed 8 months ago in what official reports called a terrorist attack. A larger ship emerged from behind one of the larger debris pieces. Jake recognized the design as a military reconnaissance vessel. Captain Roy Mitchell's voice came through their communication system. Welcome to the graveyard of interspecies cooperation, Roy said. Prepare to dock with my ship. What I'm about to show you will change everything you think you know about this conspiracy. The docking procedure took several minutes. When they finally boarded Roy's ship, Jake was shocked at his old friend's appearance. Roy looked like he had aged 10 years in the past few months. His hair was gray and his eyes had the hollow look of someone who had seen too much. Roy, what happened here? Jake asked. Carter Dynamics happened, Roy replied. Harmony Station was working on technology that could restore damaged ecosystems. They were close to a breakthrough that would have made your father's nano-weapons useless. Roy led them to the ship's data center where holographic displays showed the station's final moments. The attack had come without warning, destroying the station and killing everyone aboard. The official report blamed alien extremists, Roy continued, but I was able to recover some of the station's data cores. Look at this. The hologram changed to show communication logs from the days before the attack. Jake could see messages between Henry Carter and someone identified only as Hegemony Contact 7. Your father ordered the attack, Roy told Lily. He couldn't risk the aliens developing technology that would undo his environmental damage. Lily was staring at the evidence with tears in her eyes. He killed 300 people to protect his profits. It gets worse, Roy said. He activated another display. Carter Dynamics has been providing the Hegemony with detailed information about human military capabilities, trade routes, and colonial defenses. In exchange, the Hegemony has been eliminating Carter's competition and helping him consolidate control over human mining operations. Jake studied the data. This isn't just corporate corruption, this is treason on a massive scale. And it's about to get worse, Dr. Sullivan's voice said through the communication system. I've been monitoring Hegemony fleet movements. They're positioning ships around major human colonies. If they execute their plan, they'll have complete control over human space within days. Roy nodded grimly. The Hegemony Council is meeting tomorrow to vote on a resolution declaring humanity a threat to galactic peace. Your father's crimes will be used as justification for placing all human worlds under alien protection. Protection, Lily said bitterly. You mean occupation? Exactly. And once the Hegemony controls human space, Carter Dynamics will be the only company authorized to operate mining operations. Your father will have a monopoly on resources across dozens of star systems. Jake felt anger building in his chest. Henry Carter was willing to sacrifice the freedom of the entire human race for profit. There has to be a way to stop this, Jake said. Roy walked over to a weapons locker and began pulling out military equipment. There is, but it's going to require us to do something that will either save humanity or start an interstellar war. What do you have in mind? Lisa asked. Roy held up a data storage device. We're going to Carter Dynamics headquarters on New Pittsburgh. We're going to broadcast the truth to every human world simultaneously, and we're going to make sure Henry Carter can never hurt anyone again. Lily stood up from her chair. My father will have that place defended like a fortress. Getting in will be impossible. Not impossible, Jake said, studying the tactical displays. Just very dangerous. But I think I know a way. Roy looked at his old friend. What are you thinking? Jake smiled for the first time in days. I'm thinking, it's time to show the galaxy what humans do when someone threatens our freedom. We fight back. Lisa began plotting a course to New Pittsburgh. This is going to be the most dangerous mission any of us have ever attempted. Good, Jake replied. I wouldn't want it any other way. The journey to New Pittsburgh took 18 hours through hyperspace. Jake spent most of the time studying blueprints of Carter Dynamics headquarters, while Roy and Lisa planned their approach. The facility was massive, floating in orbit above, the mining planet like a metal city in space. Security is going to be tight, Lisa warned as she reviewed the latest intelligence reports. Your father increased protection after you disappeared, Lily. He's got 3 full squadrons of security ships patrolling the area. Lily looked at the holographic display showing her father's headquarters. There's a service entrance on the lower levels that most people don't know about. It was built for emergency evacuations, but it connects directly to the executive floors. Can you get us through the security systems? Jake asked. I still have my access codes, Lily replied. My father never thought I would use them against him. Roy checked his weapons one more time. Once we're inside, we need to reach the main communication center. That's the only place with enough power to broadcast to every human world simultaneously. Jake studied the facility's layout. The communication center is on the top level, right next to your father's office. He'll be expecting us to go there. So, what do you suggest? Lisa asked. We split up. Roy and I will create a distraction on The lower levels while you and Lily head for the communication center. By the time security realizes what's happening, it will be too late to stop the broadcast. As they approached New Pittsburgh, Jake could see why Henry Carter had chosen this world for his headquarters. The planet's surface was covered with massive mining operations that stretched from pole to pole. Entire mountains had been stripped away, leaving behind empty craters and poisoned rivers. "This is what my father calls progress," Lily said quietly. Their ship was small enough to avoid detection by the main security patrols. Lisa piloted them through the debris field around the planet, using destroyed mining equipment as cover. Getting close to the headquarters required flying through a maze of cargo ships, worker transports, and automated mining drones. "There," Jake pointed to a docking port near the bottom of the space station. "That looks like the service entrance Lily mentioned." Lisa brought their ship alongside the docking port with expert precision. The connection sealed with a soft hiss, and Jake checked his equipment one final time. He carried a military-grade energy rifle, explosive charges, and a portable computer system that Roy had modified for electronic warfare. "Remember," Roy said as they prepared to board the station, "we need 15 minutes to get the broadcast ready. Whatever happens, keep security busy for at least that long." Jake nodded. "Don't worry about us, just make sure the truth gets out." The service entrance led into a maintenance corridor that ran through the station's lower levels. The air smelled of machine oil and recycled atmosphere. Jake and Roy moved carefully through the narrow passages, avoiding security cameras and automated patrols. "This place is bigger than I expected," Roy whispered as they reached a junction between corridors. Jake consulted his portable scanner. "The main power distribution center should be about half a mile that way. If we can cause some problems with the power grid, it will draw security away from the upper levels." They made their way through the maintenance areas, past humming machinery, and storage rooms filled with mining equipment. Jake was impressed by the facility's size and complexity. Henry Carter had built himself a fortress that could house thousands of workers and defend itself against military attack. The power distribution center was guarded by 2 security officers who looked bored with their assignment. Jake and Roy waited until the guards moved to opposite ends of their patrol route, then struck quickly and silently. Within minutes, they had access to the station's main power systems. "This is beautiful," Roy said as he connected his portable computer to the power grid controls. "Carter built this place with standard military systems. I can cause selective power failures that will look like equipment malfunctions." Jake set up his explosive charges around key power distribution nodes. "When I trigger these, it will take them hours to restore full power. That should give us enough time." Meanwhile, Lily and Lisa were making their way through the upper levels of the station. Lily's access codes worked perfectly, allowing them to bypass security checkpoints and restricted areas. But as they got closer to the communication center, they encountered more guards and surveillance systems. "Your father really doesn't trust anyone," Lisa observed as they hid behind a corner waiting for a patrol to pass. "He has good reason not to," Lily replied. "The data I took isn't the only evidence of his crimes. There are people throughout his organization who know what he's been doing." They reached the communication center just as Jake triggered his explosive charges. The lights flickered and emergency alarms began sounding throughout the station. In the confusion, Lisa was able to disable the guards outside the communication center with a stunner weapon. Inside the center, banks of communication equipment lined the walls. Lily immediately went to work connecting her data storage device to the main broadcast system. "This is going to take a few minutes," she told Lisa. "The system needs to encode the data for transmission to every human world." Lisa positioned herself at the entrance, watching for security forces. Through the communication center's windows, she could see lights flashing throughout the space station as Jake and Roy's sabotage caused systems to fail across multiple levels. Down in the power distribution center, Jake and Roy were fighting a running battle with security teams. The guards were well-trained and heavily armed, but they were not prepared for military veterans who knew how to use the station's own systems against them. "Jake, we've got company," Roy warned as he spotted reinforcements coming down the main corridor. Jake rigged another explosive charge to a fuel line. "Time to leave. We've done enough damage here." They fought their way back through the maintenance corridors, using Jake's knowledge of industrial systems to create obstacles for their pursuers. Overloaded power lines created electrical barriers, and ruptured coolant pipes filled passages with freezing mist that disrupted the guards' thermal imaging. In the communication center, Lily's broadcast was almost ready, but as she worked, footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Lisa peered around the doorframe and saw a large group of security officers approaching. "Lily, we're about to have visitors," Lisa warned. "Just 30 more seconds," Lily replied, her fingers flying over the control systems. The security team reached the communication center just as Lily activated the broadcast. Her father's crimes, the evidence of cooperation with the hegemony, and proof of the planned occupation of human space began transmitting to every inhabited world in human territory. But their victory was short-lived. The security officers forced their way into the communication center, and Lisa found herself outnumbered 10-1. She fought bravely, but there were too many opponents. "Lily Carter," a familiar voice said from the entrance. "You always were. Too clever for your own good." Lily turned to see her father standing in the doorway. Henry Carter was a tall man with gray hair and cold eyes that showed no emotion as he looked at his daughter. "Hello, Father," Lily said calmly. "I see you got my message." Henry Carter gestured to his security officers, who immediately surrounded Lily and Lisa. "Did you really think you could destroy everything I've built with stolen data and naive idealism?" "Think I just did," Lily replied. "The broadcast went out 5 minutes ago. Every human world now knows what you've been doing." Henry Carter smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "And what do you think will happen now?" "The Hegemony Council is meeting in 2 hours to vote on the occupation resolution. Your little broadcast will only convince them that humanity needs immediate supervision." Jake's voice came through Lily's communicator. "Lily, Roy and I are in position. Just say the word." Henry Carter heard the transmission and laughed. "Your friends can't help you now. This station has enough firepower to destroy a fleet." "Maybe," Lily said, "but you're forgetting something, Father." "What's that?" Lily smiled for the first time since entering the communication center. "You taught me never to have just one plan." Suddenly, the lights went out completely. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, but in those few seconds of darkness, everything changed. Jake and Roy had triggered the station's emergency evacuation protocol, which automatically opened all interior blast doors and activated the evacuation alarm. In the confusion that followed, Lisa broke free from her captors and began fighting her way toward Lily. Jake and Roy burst into the communications center through a maintenance hatch, their weapons ready for battle. "Time to go," Jake shouted over the noise of alarms and gunfire. But Henry Carter was not finished. He pulled out a personal communicator and spoke into it quickly. "Execute Order 7. Destroy the station. Authorization Carter Alpha 9. Jake stared at him in shock. "You're going to kill everyone on this station just to stop us?" Henry Carter's expression was cold and calculating. "Sometimes you have to cut away diseased tissue to save the whole body. My death will be a small price to pay for preserving the future of humanity." "Your version of humanity," Lily said bitterly. "The only version that matters," her father replied. Outside the station, Jake could see explosion flashes as the self-destruct charge. The corridors of Carter Dynamics headquarters shook as the first self-destruct charges exploded in the lower levels. Jake led the team through smoke-filled passages while emergency lights flashed red warnings throughout the facility. Workers and security officers ran in all directions, trying to reach escape pods before the station destroyed itself. "The docking port is 2 levels down," Lily shouted over the noise of alarms and distant explosions. Jake checked his scanner. "We've got 4 minutes before the main charges detonate." They reached a transport shaft that connected the different levels of the station. But when Roy tried to activate the elevator, nothing happened. The power systems were too damaged to operate normally. "Maintenance ladder," Lisa pointed to an emergency access tunnel. "It's our only option." The climb down took precious time. Behind them, Henry Carter's security forces were still pursuing, even though their own lives were in danger. Jake realized that Carter had trained his people to follow orders without question, no matter what the cost. As they climbed, explosions continued to rock the station. Through openings in the shaft, Jake could see sections of the facility breaking apart and drifting into space. Carter's self-destruct system was designed to leave no evidence behind. They reached the docking level with 2 minutes to spare. But when they arrived at their ship, they found it surrounded by security officers. The guards had damaged the ship's engines, making it impossible to escape. "Now what?" Roy asked, checking his weapon's power level. Jake looked around the docking bay. There were other ships present, including several emergency evacuation vessels and a few corporate shuttles. But all of them were too small to carry everyone, and most were probably damaged by the explosions. There, Lily pointed to a large cargo transport at the far end of the docking bay. "That ship can carry all of us, plus some of the other people, trying to escape." The cargo transport was bigger and more powerful than their original ship, but it was also heavily defended. A squad of security officers had taken positions around it, apparently planning to use it for their own escape. "We need that ship," Jake said, "but we can't fight our way through that many guards." Lisa checked her equipment. "I've got 2 stun grenades left. That might be enough to clear a path." "Wait," Roy said, pointing to his scanner. "I'm reading massive energy signatures approaching from outside the station." Through the docking bay's windows, they could see ships emerging from hyperspace, but these were not human vessels. The sleek alien designs marked them as hegemony warships. "Commander Stone," Jake muttered, recognizing the lead ship from their earlier encounter. But as the alien fleet approached, something unexpected happened. The hegemony ships opened fire on each other. Jake watched in amazement as the fleet split into 2 groups, engaging in a fierce battle around the dying space station. "What's happening?" Lily asked. Roy was monitoring the communication channels. "It sounds like there's been a split in the hegemony leadership. Some of them want to go through with the occupation plan, but others are opposing it." Commander Stone's voice came through the station's communication system. "Human vessel in Docking Bay 7, this is Commander Stone of the Hegemony Enforcement Division. We are here to assist in your evacuation." Jake grabbed a communication device. "Commander Stone, this is Jake Morrison. We need immediate extraction. The station is about to explode." "Understood. We are moving to intercept, but we are engaged with hostile forces. You need to reach open space on your own." The security officers around the cargo transport were distracted by the space battle outside. Jake saw his opportunity. "Now," he told his team. They sprinted across the docking bay while explosions from the space battle lit up the windows. Lisa threw her stun grenades into the group of guards, creating enough confusion for Jake and Roy to reach the transport's entrance. The ship's pilot was already preparing for launch when they boarded. He was a middle-aged man with the weathered look of someone who had spent years flying dangerous cargo runs. "Are you folks the ones causing all this trouble?" he asked as Jake's team secured themselves for takeoff. "Guilty as charged," Jake replied. "Can this ship get us out of here?" "She's not pretty, but she's fast," the pilot said, firing up the engines. "Hold on." The cargo transport shot out of the docking bay just as another series of explosions rocked the space station. Around them, the battle between the 2 hegemony fleets continued to rage. Energy beams and missile trails lit up the darkness of space. There, Lily pointed to Commander Stone's ship, which was fighting its way toward them through the chaos. "He's trying to reach us." But their escape was not going to be easy. Ships loyal to the occupation faction were moving to intercept them. The transport pilot pushed his engines to maximum power, but the cargo ship was not built for combat maneuvers. "Incoming missiles," Roy warned, watching the scanner displays. The pilot threw the ship into a desperate, evasive pattern, using the debris from the exploding space station as cover. Behind them, Jake could see Carter Dynamics headquarters breaking apart in a series of massive explosions. Henry Carter's final act was destroying his own empire, rather than let it fall into other hands. Commander Stone's ship managed to reach them just as the pursuing hegemony vessels opened fire. The alien commander's defensive screens absorbed the enemy attack while his own weapons returned fire with devastating accuracy. "Transport vessel, follow our lead," Stone's voice came through their communication system. "We will escort you to safety." The journey to safe space took 20 minutes of intense fighting. Jake watched through the transport's windows as ships from both sides of the hegemony civil war engaged in battles that lit up the entire star system. Some of the alien vessels were more advanced than anything humans had ever built, but others seemed to rely on tactics and strategies that Jake recognized from his military training. When they finally reached the edge of the system, Commander Stone's ship docked with their transport. The alien commander came aboard still wearing his combat armor but moving with obvious exhaustion. "The faction supporting the occupation plan has been defeated," Stone reported. "Your broadcast of evidence convinced many in the hegemony that cooperation is better than conquest. What happens now?" Lily asked. "Now we rebuild," Stone replied. "The evidence you provided has exposed corruption throughout both human and hegemony leadership. Many officials will face trial, and new agreements must be negotiated." Dr. Sullivan's voice came through the communication system. "Jake, Lily, the Galactic Environmental Council has voted to establish a joint human-alien restoration project. We're going to heal the worlds that Carter Dynamics damaged." Jake felt a weight lifting from his shoulders. "And Carter himself?" Commander Stone's expression was unreadable. "Henry Carter died when his space station exploded. Whether that was his choice or an accident, we will never know." Lily looked out at the stars. "He made his choice long ago. Now we have to make ours." Over the following weeks, Jake watched as the truth about Carter Dynamics spread throughout human space. The evidence they had broadcast triggered investigations on dozens of worlds, exposing a network of corruption that reached the highest levels of government and business. Some people called them heroes. Others blamed them for the chaos that followed, the revelations. But Jake knew they had done the right thing. Sometimes the truth was painful, but it was always better than living a lie. 3 months later, Jake found himself back on Earth, testifying before a joint human-alien commission investigating the Carter conspiracy. Lily had taken control of her father's company and was working to transform it from a destructive force into an organization dedicated to environmental restoration. "What will you do now?" Lily asked him after the hearings concluded. Jake looked up at the sky, where construction crews were building new space stations designed with both human and alien technology. "I think I'll go back to hauling cargo, but maybe I'll be more careful about who I pick up on lonely highways." Lily laughed. "That was the best decision you ever made." "Maybe," Jake replied, "but I think the best decisions are still ahead of us." As he walked away from the government buildings, Jake reflected on how much had changed since that rainy night when he had stopped to help a stranded hitchhiker. A simple act of kindness had led to the exposure of the greatest conspiracy in human history, but more than that, it had proven something important about humanity. When faced with impossible odds and powerful enemies, humans did not surrender. They adapted, they fought back, and they found ways to turn their weaknesses into strengths. The galaxy was a big place, full of dangers and opportunities. But Jake was confident that humanity would face whatever came next with the same determination and ingenuity that had carried them through this crisis. After all, they were human, and humans never gave up.